Hey guys, give me a second. I'm going to pop on to the little live video that I've got going on so that I can actually see who's joining me and who's not. I just have to turn the sound off on this thing. So I just wanted to have a little conversation with you guys about the idea that we don't own our children and what that actually means, because I know that in the evolution of my parenting, with raising my son as a single mother and stuff, a lot of the decisions that I made as a parent were really driven by guilt. I was raised Mormon, and that put me in a position where obviously being a single mother and not having a father for my child made it was a really big deal for me to do that. And so of course I spent a lot of time trying to make up for the mistake that I thought that I had made. And so I was constantly making decisions out of guilt with my son. And I've realized since doing the work for myself and getting to a place where I'm a lot healthier and a lot more self-loving, and I embrace my journey for what it is, and I understand that me and my son chose each other, and that we joined each other at the time that we did because my son wanted to learn and grow from the experiences that I was going through, and that it's actually contributed to the young man that he is today, who his name is Winston, and he's 19 years old. So I am kind of almost out the other side, seeing how I raised him, and whether it's worked out or not, And I've realized that really the idea that we're given in society is that we own our children and that we need to gear them towards a direction, and we need to teach them that they need to behave a certain way, and if they don't, then there's consequences. And we really focus on punishing or treating the behavior that we're seeing. And I've come to realize that those behaviors that we're seeing are actually symptoms, and that there's a reason for them behaving the way that they do. When a child acts out when they're really young, they're doing it because they're not feeling love and attention. They do it for the attention. So it's not the acting out that we need to worry about. And I noticed with my son, in school, he would, refuse to do work. And the reason, and he ended up being misdiagnosed of ADHD as a result of that. And what's really interesting about that was, we could have treated, and the school system absolutely wanted to treat and focus on the fact that he wasn't willing to do the work. But what the real thing was that we didn't discover until he was 12 years old was that he had a written output disorder. And nobody saw that what he was doing was a symptom of the fact that he was scared to be vulnerable and say that he was struggling to put pen to paper. And so instead, the focus was that he was misdiagnosed with ADHD, and had I actually followed that, I would have been drugging my child for 4 years for no reason. For no good reason at all. And he would have been dealing with negative effects of those drugs as a result. So I'm glad that I didn't go there. But I'm very much realizing that it comes down to understanding that the stuff that you're seeing, whether your child's picking on other kids, or they're not paying attention in school or whatever, all of these things are symptoms of what's really going on at the core, and that's what we need to focus on. And understanding that we don't own our children, that we can't tell them, force them what to do. That's taking their power. It's understanding that you are a steward of your child helps you to be able to understand that this is a divine little being, and they've asked for you to be their guide in this life, and that we're there to support them owning their power and making the right choices for themselves. And the way that we're raised in this society, it strips us of our power. And it puts us in a place where we're driven by fear, where we make a decision because we're afraid of this other thing happening. And I don't think that that is really a way to live our lives. So if we raise our children from a place of understanding that they're these really powerful little divine beings, and we hold them to that standard, then it supports them looking at the situation and making a decision how they want to navigate from that perspective. And I'm saying this in confidence because of the fact that that was how I raised my son. I raised him with the idea and held him to the standard that he was a gentleman. And when he was doing things that didn't look like it was, what a gentleman would do, I sat him down. Of course, when he was able to talk and I could, chat back and forth with him and get a response, as young as 2, I would ask him, what would a junior gentleman be doing right now? And he would say, listening and behaving and being quiet. And I'm like, okay, so what are you going to do? And he would self-correct. And when it comes to all of the things like drugs and alcohol and substances and food and all of that, we discussed the world being his oyster and all the potential things that he could do with his life. And, we looked at a particular career choice think about firefighters, right? And we talked about what it is that you want to do in order to be a firefighter. So you want to have strong, healthy lungs, right? So you want to have good cardio. You want to have a really fast functioning brain so that you can rescue the girls and think fast in an emergency situation. You want to have strong muscles so that you can carry the girls, rescue the girls from the fire, right? And so obviously you want to go to the gym, you want to, exercise your brain, you want to not smoke and, have good cardio. So then we started to talk about the things that you don't want to do. And he's like, well, obviously I don't want to smoke because that's going to mess up my lungs. And I don't want to do drugs because it's going to slow down my brain. And, so he automatically put the pieces together and thought about it through discussion and education and looking at those different things. So he came to the conclusion of his own volition, being the brilliant young man that he is, and he was 5 or 6 at the time when we were having this conversation, that drugs and alcohol and these different substances were not going to be good for his body and not help him to be able to do whatever it was that he wanted to do in his life. So if we think about this from the perspective that we don't own them and that we are their steward and we are their guide, you can really support your child owning their power and making the right decisions for themselves. And they will follow it through. My son doesn't party. He doesn't drink alcohol. He understands that it's something that poisons your body and that going and partying isn't good for you. And he doesn't smoke, and he doesn't smoke pot, and he doesn't do substances at all. He chooses to do things that are fun, to go and play games with friends and stuff like that, but he doesn't partake of substances like most people do that are in his generation. So, I can confidently say, stepping out the other side of it, watching how he turned out, that unconditionally loving your child and empowering them to make decisions through educating them and holding them to a standard and allowing them to self-correct is a really powerful way to support your child, stepping into their power and making the right decisions for themselves. And I just want to state again that it's really important to look at what your child is going through and what it is that they're exhibiting, and not just focus on that, because truly it is the symptom of something else that is going on. If they're acting out, maybe it's because they're insecure about something. If they're having a hard time in school and stuff, maybe it's because there's something going on that they need support with. If they're depressed, you don't treat the depression. You figure out what is at the core of the depression, what is causing that. If they're not investing in themselves and they're a teenager and you're expecting them to go out and get a job and everything, well, why are they not investing in themselves? What is going on? What is causing them to feel insecure and putting them in a place that they're not going out and just investing in themselves and kicking butt and taking names? There's stuff at the core of that. And if we can automatically knee-jerk just unconditionally love our children and go to them and give them a safe space to communicate whatever their struggles are and what's going on for them, you'll be able to source what it is and be able to help them thrive. So I just hope that supports you guys, because this has really been in my thoughts a lot, thinking about my son being 19 years old and really wanting to give him his free agency. And I've been watching him struggle a little bit. He's been going through a little bit of emotion, and I really want to support him thriving. So, I'm just giving him his free agency to walk his path and do what he wants to do, and giving him a safe place to talk and asking him if he wants my input or if he just wants to, I need to get my bird because he's on my phone. This is what happens when you have pets. But don't forget to offer to the child feedback if they want it. Don't just give them your 2 cents. If they want to share with you, let them share with you, and don't necessarily give your feedback. Ask them if they want it, because then it gives them a safe place to share without feeling like you're automatically going to tell them what to do or give your 2 cents every time they share. And don't force them to share. They share when they want to, and they come to you and they talk through things when they're ready to, and not before then. It's really important to give them their free agency.